for authors, filmmakers, entertainment, and all your listening needs. Listen now to Talk Now Radio, where no topic is taboo.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Now Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is going to be David Cohen, the author of Ley Lines and Earth Energies. And actually, I might have put that word "and" in there myself. No, it's in there. Okay. And Earth Energies. And we're going to be discussing his book today. Real quick, I'd like to remind everybody, if you got any questions, you could either ask them in the chat room, or you can call in at 832-632-7904. And if you want to learn more about the Ley Lines, I am so sorry, folks. My mind just went off in left field on me there. His website is www.ley-man.co.uk. And don't forget that Talk Now Radio is listener supported, so if you want to keep us free from sponsors, you can hit the donate thing. You could pass the show around, click on the advertisements. If you want to buy the author's book, click on the link to the book at Amazon. On the book cover I got below his description so that I get credit for it instead of going directly to Amazon. There's many ways you can support us. So how are you doing today, David?
I'm fine, thank you.
Alrighty. Well, listen, I kind of flagged you because I saw your title of your book, Ley Lines and Earth Energies, which I thought was a good, interesting topic to talk about. So why don't we start this out with you kind of like giving everybody an idea what got you interested in doing this?
Well, it was about 20 years ago. There was a program in Tomorrow's World. It was a scientific program in the BBC here in the United Kingdom. And it showed it was an engineer trying to make an energy which an aircraft or ship could follow. And the energy he used was a black box with electric light inside it shining through a quartzite window. And he could make an energy field from that box, running for some considerable distance, but the only problem was they couldn't make a receiver to pick it up. And the only thing he could use was a pair of divining rods to find this energy. Now, bearing in mind that I was born and brought up here in Scotland, in Glasgow, during the war, as a very hard-headed little individual, no nonsense. When I saw this program, I couldn't believe it. So I made a very simple pair of divining rods myself, just a piece of bent fence wire, and I also made a box with an electric bulb inside it shining through a quartz window, and to my absolute amazement, I discovered I could pick up the energy very easily using this divining rod. So another thing that this program showed was even when this energy was switched off, the light bulb was switched off, the energy was still emitted from this box. I couldn't believe that until I tried it. Still discovered it was I could still find it. And even when they took the box away, even a day or two later, you could still find this energy. Now that surprised me, to say the least. So after that, I went to a standing stone. I read a book by Tom Graves about water divining and using divining rods to pick up energies from standing stones. And once again, there's quite a lot of standing stones in Scotland, so instead of going my usual hill walk, I went up to a standing stone, tuned in with my one divining rod, and found, again to my amazement, my life's been full of it, being amazed, I found I could pick up the energy and walk mile after mile following this sinusoidal wave of energy. It's about 2 to 3 meters wavelength. And, and after that, I tried many other things. And one of the things I discovered was that the burial grounds in Scotland are old clan burial grounds, much older than 1,000 years old. And I could also find energy coming from them as well, too. Waves of energy, whole streams of energy running north to south and east to west. So I was very keen I knew there was something very powerful here and knowledge which had been completely lost. So being, again, a keen hill walker, I tuned into a whole stream of energy running through these burial grounds, north to south, followed it for about 20 miles, couldn't find anything at all, tried a number of these old burial grounds, and eventually discovered, to cut a long story short, and about several hundred miles walking short, I discovered these energies were actually being focused into Stirling Castle and Edinburgh Castle. In other words, if you have Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle, they are volcanic plugs, and they emit energies like the spokes of a bicycle wheel. And where these energies cross, that's where our ancestors built the burial grounds. So you can imagine, for instance, say a king a few thousand years ago sitting on top of one of these volcanic plugs, say, for instance, Edinburgh Castle. So there he is, sitting on top of this energy field, which is pulsing back and forward through all these old burial grounds. And there he is, sitting in what we Scots call a Lea Filius, which is the stone of destiny, which is originally a meteorite, an iron meteorite, which was magnetic. And there he is, sitting on top of all of this, and he's also wearing a crown, which has diamonds in it, Cullinan diamond, various other, all diamonds taken from conquered lands. And there he is, sitting there with his archbishop at his side, also wearing a scepter as well, too full of stones, and wearing his pointy mitre hat.
Right.
So, what were they doing under these circumstances? It seems to be a form of ceremonial magic.
Yes, sounds like. So, now I heard you say earlier about the light bulb in the box. Is this energy coming off the ley lines able to actually make that light bulb light up?
No, that's just ordinary energy from the light bulb. No, the energy, one of the secrets, the major secret I discovered is that it's these volcanic plugs and extinct volcanoes which emit energies which our ancestors built their sacred sites on.
Okay. So, in other words, now I understand the two castles acted as plugs. Did Stonehenge, for example, also act as a plug, or was it acting as kind of a conductor?
It was acting as an emitter.
Emitter.
And emits energies from deep inside the earth.
So is it kind of like the energy travels from the volcano plug or the castle to Stonehenge, and Stonehenge emits it out from there?
Roughly. Stonehenge, I haven't done anything on Stonehenge, but Scotland has got quite a number of volcanic plugs.
Well, okay, I didn't mean Stonehenge necessarily. That was just a place in my mind I could refer to make the case or to explain where I was trying to go with it. I really meant basically like any sacred site, like Stonehenge, in other words.
Yes, like Stonehenge. Well, for instance, you have the Federal Triangle there in Washington. There's a person called David Ovison wrote the book, The Secret Architecture of Our Nation's Capital. And he's got this triangle with the Capitol at the bottom right-hand side, the White House in the middle, you've got George Washington's monument, and then further on you have the setting sun on August the 10th. You can see it down Pennsylvania Avenue. And then further on you have the three stars, Arcturus is one of them, and various others, a right-angled triangle of stars called Virgo, constellation Virgo, all in a straight line. But what he didn't realize was that the energies down Pennsylvania Avenue come from three volcanic plugs. You have the Azores, well away to the southeast. There's a huge volcano there, extinct volcano, which emits energy through Pennsylvania Avenue, and it goes to a place called Bear Butte volcanic plug, and then on to the Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
That's quite a travel.
These ley lines are global.
They're global. So, and they could actually be used as for centers of energy if you wanted to park something along the actual line itself or near to the line?
Oh, yes. For instance, if you want to put a monument to somebody like George Washington, you would put that on that line.
And it would help emit energy
It seems to be a focal point for maybe unless somebody can come up with a better theory, it seems to have been ceremonial magic that they've been doing. They've also been doing
So this is sort of a spiritual type of energy or a...
Yes, a spiritual type of energy. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I asked this because a couple years back I had a man named Walter Bosley on, and he wrote a book called Latitude 33, Keys to the Kingdom, and it dealt with ley lines. And he said that most of your ley lines are at latitude 33. And he said that King Arthur's carousel in Disneyland or Disney World was right where three of these lines intersected. And he thought that's why that carousel was such a magnet for paranormal activity, in other words.
Yes, there's quite a number of people working in different theories. But it was some years ago when after I wrote my first book, Ley Lines and Earth Energies, there's a previous book to that about geopathic stress, about people becoming ill on above underground streams and above underground volcanic faults. And I had a telephone call from the local tourist information centre saying there's a glamorous American blonde here. She read your first book and she's dying to meet you. So that's when I met Bernadette Cahill. She came up to see me. We were talking about these problems of ill health. And when she left the door, she paused and hesitated and said, I live in Jackson, Mississippi, and every time I go back there, I feel ill. It's only when I go away I feel better, and then I go back to Jackson. I can't do anything. I feel so tired. The energy seems to be sucked out of me. So as she left, I said, when you get back home, go down to the geologist's office and see if you can find any reason for this. There may be an underground stream or something. And she phoned me back, very excited, a few weeks later, and saying, Jackson has been built on top of a 19,000-foot volcano. And she showed me a side scan of it and various other things as well, too. Also a magnetic anomaly, and Jackson looks like a magnetic, like a black hole. Then she discovered that Jackson shouldn't have been built there in the first place. It should have been built some distance away. But somebody very high up in America said, no, it's got to be built there and nowhere else. Exactly 90 degrees east. On the 90-degree east.
Well, we do know... Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, we're going to finish this off. She also discovered that there was a line of capital cities going north to south. Memphis for one, St. Louis and others going north to south. And then others going east to west. And from my own experience, I discovered that these energies were coming from volcanic plugs like Galapagos, Bermuda, and the Azores. And all of the capital cities in America have been lined up with these volcanic plugs.
Now, I was going to say a minute ago that, well, let's see, where was I at? Oh, that we do know that heat comes out of a volcano with that hot lava, and heat's a form of energy. Do you think there's a connection between heat and the energy of these volcano plugs?
These volcanoes have been dead, especially here in Scotland. Jackson is still partly alive, but here in Scotland these are well extinct.
So they've had more than enough time to cool off.
Well, yes, they've cooled off. But very often these volcanic plugs give rise to places like Devil's Tower in Wyoming. If you can remember that, these are basalt. They're sort of hexagonal columns of rock. And we have here in Scotland, we have the island of Staffa, which is a huge island, a large island, it's about 2 miles across, and it has Fingal's Cave in it. And I remember many years ago a person telling me that if you shone a light in the back of Fingal's Cave, it could be seen on the island of Iona. So I drew a line from Fingal's Cave, Staffa Island, and it goes right through Iona Abbey, and the energy in this particular case from La Palmas de Gran Canaria, the Canary Islands, is a very powerful, 2 very powerful volcanoes, and it goes straight through Iona Abbey, where Christianity started in this country. So St. Columbus actually went there. He knew about these things, and he placed Iona Abbey on the crossing of two of these powerful ley lines.
I forget who it was, but I want to say it was Tim Murphy, but it might have been somebody else. I've had so many guests on over the years that was telling me that there was an abbey built near Scotland somewhere that had, it was Greg Rigsby, come to think of it, not Tim Murphy, but he was telling me that they had actually moved that abbey because it was not in line with the rest of the ley lines. In other words, that somebody was evidently deliberately putting these churches and church monuments along these ley lines.
Oh yes, that's very likely. They knew what they were doing thousands of years ago. And the knowledge has come down to the Freemasons. They're still using this knowledge.
That would also tend to make me wonder about the Bermuda Triangle. Could it be that there's a inactive volcano, underwater volcano that could be feeding the energy to that and to the Dragon's Triangle in the Pacific?
It could be. I haven't done any work on that either, I'm afraid.
Well, I wish I was up to going over there to dive. I'd look and see. It'd be interesting if you dove under and you found an old volcano don't work anymore.
Okay. So I'm just looking for, there we are. There's another. In Scotland here we have, as I say, we have Edinburgh Castle, Stirling Castle, two very powerful volcanic anomalies. And once again, the energies are going through all of these old burial grounds. Now, I walked about 500 or 600 miles following these energies, but there's also energy coming from Ailsa Craig, which is another volcanic anomaly, and that's where all the energies cross. Now, I should have another one here as well, too, Stuff Island. In Edinburgh, for instance, the capital of Scotland, there, as I said, you have the Federal Triangle, you have three powerful magnetic anomalies in line. In Edinburgh, we have the same as well, too. We have three volcanic anomalies. One is to the east of Edinburgh, and it's a big volcanic anomaly. And you have Carlton Hill in Edinburgh, in a line, and way down to the southwest we have the Giant's Causeway in Ireland, all three of them in a straight line. And in Edinburgh we have three streets on that line as well too, Princess Street, George Street and Union Street. And on that street you have no less than 9 major banks. There's Royal Bank of Scotland, the Bank of Scotland, we have the headquarters of the Church of Scotland and the headquarters of the Speculative Society of Freemasons, along with all the other insurance companies as well. But not only that, you have the All-Seeing Eye of the Freemasons as well too. There's a place called St. Andrew's Square, and they have paths there in the All-Seeing Eye of the Freemasons, and that's lined up with these three volcanic anomalies as well too. But it also has another path transecting it, and it goes to the palace at Edinburgh Castle, and it goes on to a very powerful plug as well too, volcanic plug near St. Andrews. And in the centre of that you have the monument to Lord Dundas. He was the first Secretary of State for War, and he was also the Governor of the Royal Bank of Scotland. And his statue is right in the centre of no less than 5 volcanic plugs.
Wow. So you think that these people were actually trying to, align their castles and their businesses and things like that close into this energy for, say, maybe trying to enhance their psychic abilities?
I think it was a psychic control of the whole population. Unless somebody can come up with a better theory. That's the only one I can come up with at the moment.
If that was the case, then these things would still be active psychic hotspots that could still be in use today.
Oh, yes, very much so. By a few people who know about these things. But now, after my books, everyone will know about them. And not only that, bearing in mind these volcanic plugs, beating energy between each other, people all over the world are going to start looking for similar streets and churches and cathedrals, etc. as well.
Yeah, I think somebody ought to investigate in America and see how many, big buildings or monuments or whatever are built near volcanoes here.
Yes, you've got quite a number. There seem to be extinct volcanoes. I know in the West Coast you have quite a number of still active volcanoes, but they don't seem to have been able to use these. But I'll leave that for somebody else in America. I've never been to America, so I'm doing this at a distance.
Right. Well, I'm in America, but with my health the way it is, I can't do it myself. But there are other people around who can. But I was just thinking about Yellowstone Park. They have a geyser there they called Old Faithful.
Old Faithful, yes.
And I wonder if it could have the same properties as a volcano would have.
I don't know. No, this is the very start of this knowledge as well too. So there are other people are going to use my work as a springboard and carry on and find their own things.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that like you say, to give them their own ideas about other avenues, offshoots, or whatever you want to call them.
Yes, there will be quite a few. I'm quite sure.
And you've traveled pretty well all over Scotland to discover all of this, haven't you?
I've actually walked about 3,000 miles, rough estimate, following these. It's one of these things, when you're onto something very important, you really have to, push the boat out. So I've been walking summer and winter, over 3,000-foot hills, often in straight lines. Mm-hmm. Very tiring. In fact, my feet were so sore I could hardly even walk at one time, but I still kept on. I still persisted.
So you were walking around with divining rods and that bulb in a box for this kind of distance, trying to follow the lines and make sure they went all the way through?
Yes, that was one of the things I discovered. If you follow a ley line, there's different types. You can have roughly circular ones, you can have straight ones, and you can have slightly crooked ones. And the only way to really understand them is to make a very simple pair of divining rods and follow them. I've come across some quite remarkable things. Let me see one. Okay, there's the local burial ground here, and a friend of mine, she's a psychic. She said that when she went down to the old burial ground, she said she could feel energy coming up from the old part, the original part. And she asked me to go and have a look. I couldn't find anything at all. I didn't know what I was looking for. But then another psychic came up about some months later, and he showed me the place there, the central part, the original part of the burial ground. That's when I realized there's two vertical pillars there. And I suddenly realized that was the remains of a Masonic triptych. Now, a triptych is, if you can remember Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper, there's a triptych behind that picture as well, too. It's a sort of three arches. And the horizontal slab had been missing, had been taken down some time ago. But I took I found that it was exactly lined north to south. And I began to realize the masons had been working there. And looking through that triptych, you can see a fleur-de-lis, a fountain. It painted blue and white, Masonic colors. And then I noticed there were three ibis birds. Now, ibis birds, that's Egyptian. One with its head down, one with its head slightly up, and one with its head about 3/4 way up, with another third one, the dove of peace, with its head and beak pointing to the skies. And that's the ascension of the human spirit. So I found there was 12 graves around this old fountain originally. 12, Christ plus the Christ and the disciples, or King Arthur and his men as well too, all sorts of things. And
so there's usually always a graveyard not too far away.
Well, this is unusual. I haven't discovered any other one like this. But using my divining rod, I discovered, knowing about it some time ago, that every grave emits a spiral of energy. You can call it spirit energy if you like. It's a double spiral, one good energy, one bad, positive, negative, black or white, whatever you want to call it. It's anti-clockwise, and the black energy from all of these graves around goes into this fleur-de-lis, which is a resonant cavity. which attracts these energies. And then all the energy spirals round and round and round for some 50 yards or so and goes into this huge memorial, pure white quartzite memorial. Never seen one like it before or since. And from that memorial, the quartzite, it's a sort of square in plan view. And all the energy from these graves go into the side. Then it's transmitted from the flat face, and it goes up to a hill behind Crieff, and it goes through the hydropathic hotel, a well-known, worldwide known hotel. And then I discovered when I looked at it, it was a Dr. Meikle, who it was his memorial stone, and the hydropathic hotel was the hotel that he built. So the Freemasons were using the spiritual energy, putting it into his quartz stone and transmitting it through his huge hotel.
Okay.
And then
I think there's a connection from listening to you between what's considered holy sites and ley lines. I think it's the ley lines and the strength of the actual line at any given location is what determines what makes one site holier than another site.
You can have a church, two churches in line in a ley line. One can be bad. It depends on the people inside it. They can alter the energies. Bearing in mind, of course, that Hitler and his SS, Schultstaffen, were very interested in this research. And they were trying to subjugate the whole world.
That would make me wonder just what kind of ley line the Temple Mount is in Jerusalem. I'm betting it's one of the most powerful lines in the world.
I bet somebody else can pick this knowledge up and find their own, make their own books, write their own book on this subject.
I think it'd be a very interesting thing to get into.
And the Vatican as well, too. There's a lot of energy there, but I can't find any volcanic plug ley lines there. There's something different there.
So, you're also saying, if I understand you correctly, that you can actually go to where a ley line begins at a volcanic plug, for example, and by placing monuments at strategic points, you can actually guide a ley line to go wherever you want it to go?
You may be able to guide it, but the thing is, some people are actually using these ley lines to put their own energy into as well, for good or for bad.
And pretty much wherever you put a certain type of standing stone, or because I'm sure it has to have a certain kind of material to make it work. It's gonna act as a magnet to the energy. Then
the standing stones in this country are always placed above volcanic fissures or underground streams, and these emit energy into the standing stone. And the standing stone emits the energy from the flat face, rather like kind of
like a radio tower.
Yes, from the flat face. And they can use these to amplify the energies through their dead and burial grounds. This knowledge had been known by the Chinese, ancient Chinese and Egyptians as well, too.
Well, is there a certain kind of material that these standing stones are made out of?
It can be made of anything. This white quartzite stone I was telling you about, that seems to be most powerful.
That's interesting, because I've heard about the connection between quartz material and psychic abilities before, and as I'm given to understand now, quartz is also fantastic for storing information.
Yes, you can use it for your watch as well too, of course, and make watches out of them. And the ping acoustic things on destroyers as well too, they're made of quartz, I think, I'm not sure.
And quartz is found in many different kinds of rock, isn't it?
Oh yes, quartzite, yes, that's true.
Which would explain the standing stones.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be just perfect. And have you ever heard of the crystal skulls?
Yes, I've got a friend who has one.
Well, as I'm given to understand, some of those are said to have a certain psychic information that was implanted into them by the ancients long before Noah's flood.
I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised. The knowledge of our ancestors, I find, is quite remarkable, and we don't give them credit to it.
Well, then that would mean that the ancients would have had to have gotten information from somewhere that would have told them that quartz was a kind of material that could, attract this kind of energy and amplify it, whatever, transmit it. This should not be in common knowledge in the Stone Age, but that is when many of these items were erected.
Yeah, I think in the Stone Age they were very much more in touch with our planet, and quite possibly the energies were stronger then as well too.
Yeah, that's a good possibility, but that would also explain why you find them all over the world, because they were being erected as people moved from one place to the next place and wanted to set up their spiritual energy areas for their worship centers. They would naturally set it up everywhere they went.
Yes, yep. But unfortunately nowadays we've lost most of that knowledge, and people do the most amazing things. I had a woman phoned me up. She said that she'd built a house on top of a stone circle where some witch had been burned. And she said the psychic problems there were absolutely terrible.
Why would somebody? Was she hoping to enhance psychic powers or something?
She didn't realize just how strong these. In fact, she didn't know anything about these energies at all.
Well, I know that some people will theorize that even after you're dead, you leave an energy signature in the area where you were at. It's not unusual to think that people would try to tap this kind of energy for, personal uses of some kind.
Yes, of course. The Chinese believed that each of us had three souls. One was called the Hun, the other was called the Po, and there was a third one which went on to evolve in its own manner, which you couldn't do anything about, so they never paid very much attention to it. And they believed that if a person was dying, they would take him away from the family bed, because if they died in that bed, the bed would become haunted. And they also had a special place in the house as well too, with pictures of the deceased as well too, so that the energy from the body could come into that place and be used for the benefit of the sons, daughters, family, etc.
I never heard of that before, but it does make sense.
Well, the Egyptians believed that we had 7 souls. There was the Ka, the Ba, the Nanamit, and Mummy, and others. And they even kept the bodies as long as possible to give the descendants for many, many generations the benefit of their good feng shui.
That's right. There is a such thing as feng shui, which deals with how you arrange your furniture in your house and your plants outside, et cetera, et cetera. And I bet there's a connection between feng shui and these standing monuments all over the world.
Oh yes, very, very much so. But the feng shui that people do nowadays is very, very gentle. The ley lines that I've been working on researching are quite powerful. I've had quite a number of cases not cases, but 3 cases of people suffering attacked by invisible demons.
And this was when they were close to the ley lines, or?
Well, I've been specializing in black spirals. That's when you get, for instance, an underground stream. It gives energy to the surface as a sort of spiral. And you also get these ley lines, which are vertical lines of energy. When you have a spiral like that, for instance, under your bed, and you have all these vertical lines of energy, as soon as they touch that spiral, they all converge into the center, giving a very powerful hot spot. And there was one case, there's one lady phoned me up. She said she'd been attacked every night in her bed by an invisible demon. And I went to see her. I thought maybe she was, looking for an attention seeker. But when I got there, her husband was there, and he said, I was raped another night in my bed as well, too, beside my bed, beside my wife. And I thought, well, the 2 people can't be wrong. So I used my divining rods, and I found there was a very, very powerful black spiral just between them in their bed.
Oh, wow, that's scary.
Yeah, it was scary. I've had several cases of that. But during conversation, we had a cup of tea, and I tried to find out what was going on. And I discovered a pair of them had been in Africa. And then she told me that she'd stolen her husband from another woman. So I asked her, did this other woman, by any remote chance, keep your husband's trousers or underpants or anything like that? She said, yes. How do you know? Because that's why the other woman went to a juju doctor and put a spell on her, which sounds absurd, but I find so many things that sound absurd that I don't bother about it now.
Okay. So what are some of the things in your book that you cover that you think, people might be interested in, or you think they might be useful to them?
In my second book, The Ley Lines and Earth Energies, I show people various ways of getting rid of these energies from black spirals, which can, I believe, enhance their health. Because every time I find a person who is ill, I always find a black spiral in their bed, just at the site of the illness. And that attracts perhaps thousands of these vertical waves of energies, not only from ley lines, but can come from these energies from the graveyards as well, too.
So you don't have to do anything other than walk across or through the right area to pick up this kind of energy.
It's very simple. I think most people can do it. The first time I discovered that was when I went to a burial ground. I was casting around because I had already discovered this double spiral of energy from people's graves. And one particular grave near me, it had the woman's name and address, which is very unusual. So I followed the energy from her grave, and I went down about a mile, close to the road, went into her little house, and I got permission to have a look inside the house from one lady who knew about my research. And I found the energy went up the stairs and into her bed and into her bed about the abdomen. So there was a connection between the lady's grave and where she died.
Well, I was just wondering if these black spirals you're talking about couldn't be an emotional-based energy.
I have no idea how they work, but it seemed to be perfectly natural. And our ancestors knew about it thousands of years ago, but now we've forgotten all about it.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking because a lot of people will die traumatic deaths, and there'll be fear involved, terror, sometimes anger and rage, and God knows what else, and you carry that to the grave with you. Maybe it could create this kind of a negative spiral that people could walk through and take it home with them, and then it would make them sick.
Yes, especially if you sleep in that place, in that particular place where they died.
Yeah, that's another reason not to be walking over people's graves.
Yeah, that's an old saying as well, too. Well, there's a castle here called Castle Mingus, and they asked me to have a look around this castle. They showed me one particular room, and they said, can you find any of your black spirals here? And I found a quite powerful black spiral in front of a old fire. And there was a little tiny little stone room. And the girl who was showing me around there, she said, I thought there was something about this place. She said, this was the old birthing room belonging to Castle Mingus. And she said that if any baby was born, if it was sickly or if it was female, they would drop it in the flagstones and cremate the body in that fireplace. And I found I followed the energy of that black spiral from the fire in front of the fireplace, where presumably some poor soul, some nurse had to put the child into the fire, and I followed it about 300 yards to the old graveyard beside it. And there was also another place in that Castle Mingus as well, too. The keeper asked me to check the door, the step in front of the door, and I found two tiny little black spirals. And I said that's very odd. I've never seen spirals this small before. And he said, about a year or two prior to my visit, they had to take up the stone to replace it, and they found the remains of two babies. And he said that's what they did in the past. If a baby died, they would put it on, they bury it under the front door. And he said that's the reason why new group bridegrooms carry their bride over the threshold, to keep them away from that.
Huh. And here I thought it was just a cute custom.
There's an awful lot of customs which have got a reality. Now, we're talking about the Freemasons there. Now, this is a very ceremonial world we live in now. The Freemason go through ceremonies time after time with no idea what's behind it. I don't know if you know the story about Hiram Abiff.
Hiram Abiff. I'm familiar with that. He was the architect of the Solomon's Temple.
That's correct. Well, you probably remember the story. He was in the temple and he was accosted by 3 thugs. One hit him in the left temple and he sank to his left knee, got up, tried to escape through another door. The other thug hit him in the right temple and he sank to his right knee. Then he stood up and tried to get through the south gate, I think, and he was hit in the forehead in the centre of the temple and killed. And the 3 thugs were called Jubala, Jubalu, and Jubalum. Aum, the Hindu chant.
I never thought about that last part of their name before.
No, that's why.
That makes you think it was a hidden message, doesn't it?
Well, that's the hidden message. These are not Masonic secrets I'm giving away. You can pick these things up on the internet. But another thing, the Freemasons have 33 degrees. And there happens to be 33 vertebrae in the human spine. Christ died at 33-year-old. King Arthur died at 33-year-old. And if you watch the sun setting, it takes 33 years to go across the horizon and back to the starting point.
You know, that I remember reading about this passage of the sun in the book of Enoch, and he referred to it as, knowing the path of the sun as it went through its portals. And that stuck out in my mind because sun rises in the east, sets in the west, or vice versa. I keep getting it mixed up, but that's just going around in a complete circle. For it to have a portal, go through a different portal, it would have to travel north and south as well. And I begin to realize what that means is not only does the sun travel in that one circle, but as the earth rotates around it, it's shining in a different portal line, like a circle around a different area of the earth until it goes all the way around, like you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Hey, another thing about the Freemasons as well, too. You may have heard of the Kundalini. That's the energy at the base of the spine the yogas are always trying to use. It's a sort of sexual energy, and they try to take it up to the temple, up to the third eye. And that's where the person can gain enlightenment. And that's what the Freemasons do as well, too. They try to take an apprentice through one degree after another until they get to the real knowledge into the temple. Then they can see the future and do all sorts of strange things.
Well, that would explain why the number 33 is so important in many different areas.
Very important. Yes.
So is the number 7.
In 13, there's all sorts of important numbers.
Now, these are things that we're talking about that science would say was ancient folks and their superstitions. But what you're saying is that science has pegged them wrong, that they had a knowledge that today's science is not aware of.
Very much so. But do you not find yourself that our culture is very lopsided? It's very scientific. It's not spiritual. And that's partly what my book is trying to bring to the people as well, too. There is a spirit world. We do come back, I'm pretty sure. And bearing in mind, of course, as I said, I was a hard-headed little Glaswegian. For me to come round to this is very unusual. But we do evolve spiritually as well, I'm sure. And there's such a thing as karma. People should remember that karma. What you do in this particular life, you may have to come back and undo it or pay for it.
Well, I think also karma can be paid in the same lifetime or the next lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on what it is. I mean, if you play with fire, you get burnt. You paid for it in this lifetime.
Yes, but once again, Hitler, he seemed to have been an incarnation from the past, a very evil one as well, and he was a drug addict.
Yeah, now there's a lot of people that you would swear had been around on the earth before. But with Hitler, he had a thing going for the Aryan race, trying to trace them down, and because he thought that there was still some living. and that's where his tribe come from, in other words.
Yes.
Even though he was a little shorty of a stub. But
he had 12 Schultzstaffel as well too, didn't he? 12 Schultzstaffel and Hitler himself.
Now, we got about 15 minutes remaining. When we get to this here point is when I usually like to ask my guests if there's anything that they would like to tell my listeners about that I didn't think to cover.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
So is there anything you want to cover that I didn't think to ask?
No, I think you've covered just about everything. There's one other thing. I've got my computer in front of me. I see there's a nuclear submarine there. And when I went to Helensburgh, that's where there's about 7 or 8 nuclear submarines here in the Holy Loch and the Clyde. And I used my divining rods there, and I discovered the nuclear submarines give out a tremendous amount of energies. And when you have a whole line of them, you make an artificial ley line. And I discovered that the ley line goes through Largs near Glasgow, and there's a lot of people suffering from, the Hamadras, the hum. You have that in America as well too. People are hear a hum all the time. And that may be one of the reasons why people hear a hum. It's an artificial ley line caused by the nuclear reactor.
Or kind of like a whistle in your ear or a ringing in your ear?
It can be various. It can be a dull rumbling sound. I think the wavelengths are about something like 100 miles or something enormous. It can pass through just about anything. But that is one possibility that we have to think about. I'll leave that for others to figure that one out. But I think that's about all.
So there may be people who, if they can't find volcanoes nearby, that are creating artificial ley lines to serve their purpose?
I don't know if anybody can do that. Myself, if anybody is in the house and they're ill, I can make I never covered the idea of cup marked stones. These are ancient. Sometimes you have standing stones with cup marks on them. These are hollows, sometimes with a ring around them. They're called petroglyphs. And they are very much part, you'll read that about in my first book as well, too, Ley Lines and Earth Energy. And I discovered what these stones were for. They are very much part of the ley line system. And I discovered when I made my own cup mark stone, I could put it outside my house in a certain fashion, or anybody's house, and it put an energy field around the entire house. Rather like the Starfleet, that energy field they put around their Starfleet.
Kind of like a force field, only it's a spiritual energy.
It's a force field. And that stops at least a lot of the bad energies coming in. They go around the side. That's one thing I discovered. Another thing, which I have in my second book.
So by creating that force field around your house or your energy field, has it increased your psychic abilities in any way?
No, I've only had one psychic problem in my life. But I was driving along a road here. I had a little homemade kit car. It was a beautiful little thing. And I built it myself. I was driving along, minding my own business, when all of a sudden I got a vision of a deer jumping across the road, over a fence, and then disappearing into some bushes. There was no deer there, no fence, no bushes at all. And this vision came back so powerfully I couldn't even see the road. I had to slow down to a stop. And it kept recurring and recurring and recurring repeatedly, and then gradually died away. I drove on a few miles and then turned round a right-angled road over towards a bridge. And just before I got to the bridge, there was a deer jumped across the road just exactly where I'd seen it. So I'd actually seen the future about 10 minutes, which I thought it was a complete coincidence. But about a year later, driving along the same road, when I got a vision of a bright ginger pig looking at me. And once again, I had to slow down. This thing took over, my entire field of view. I couldn't see anything at all. And it gradually faded away. I drove along the road quite flabbergasted, to say the least. And at the same place I saw this deer jumping across the road, there was 10 ginger pigs having a feed. Once again, I'd seen the future 10 minutes into the future. When I went back home, I had a look at my geological map and discovered that exactly where both incidences had occurred was above the Highland Boundary Fault, where the whole of Scotland is being pushed against England. That's the only psychic thing I've ever come across. And there's no coincidence. There's no way that could have been a coincidence.
Well, I can see what you mean. So, are you going to be working on more books in the future?
I have spent £60,000, $120,000 in my second book. I worked for 10 years. Well, I stopped working for 10 years to research it. And my second book cost me $16,000, so I think it's about time I left it to somebody else.
I didn't know you had to invest so much money into writing a book.
Nowadays, at one time when I wrote my first book about geopathic stress, ill health above various fields, the publisher gave me £1,000 advance. That's what it did in the past, but it's not so easy nowadays. And this book was so important. The two books were so important. I had to. Well, I mean, I'm not married, and I don't have any family, so I've got to leave something behind, and these two books are what I'm leaving behind for the general public.
So these are fees that the publisher was charging you to publish the books?
Yes, David Childress, but after he sells the £3,000, I get my money back, and then after that it's a regular book, so I'll get royalties on that too.
That's right. I saw your book cover in your name over at Adventures Unlimited Press, which belongs to David Childress. That's right.
That's right.
Man, I'm surprised you and him didn't work together, because he does work that's, I think, sort of similar to yours, because he does a lot of research work into these old sites and, the different happenings around them, in other words.
Yes, But before I forget, there's one thing that if anybody is working in this field has to be very careful of. You have to protect yourself psychically. Otherwise you can get bad energies or maybe demons
like a demonic
attacking.
Like a
demonic possession, yes.
Yeah.
For instance, I was up at Mingus Castle and I was showing some friends how to pick up the energies from the burial ground. And my way back, I was driving along, once again, my lovely little orange kit car, when all of a sudden a big Volvo estate pulled out from the middle of traffic for no reason, hit me at 80 miles an hour. Broke my neck, broke my leg, and I was paralyzed for about 3 months. And my girlfriend, as I said, she broke her back. But that happened just about 100 yards away from the stone which I deciphered. It took me about 10 years to decipher. And I was sitting there in the smoking wreckage with a broken neck. I couldn't even move. I could just swivel my eyes round and I could see that stone there, the one which I had discovered what it was doing. And there may be something there trying to get at me. I don't know, but you have to be very careful.
I could imagine. I mean, you don't know what you're really dealing with energy-wise. I mean, the same's really pretty much true for a Ouija board, I hear tell.
Well, I had, once again, back to Mingus Castle, I took my psychic friend up there to show her around. And at the top of castles in the past were nasty places. People were murdered right, left, and centre. And we went up to the servants' quarter, which was the whole attic. And as we went in there, she said, the castle doesn't seem too bad. Other people have been clearing it, apparently. But when she walked in, the further we went in, she said, well, there's something evil there. And we got around, there's a huge chimney breast, which is about 15 feet by 15 feet. And there's all the chimneys through it. And that was in the middle of this attic. And, sorry, that's the cuckoo clock. It was the middle of the attic. And as we went round the corner of this chimney breast, there was a Ouija board with 20 seats around it. So people had been messing around with this Ouija board, and she could feel the unhealthy energies.
Yeah, but I tell you what, I bet if you get a Ouija board near somewhere like Stonehenge or another place like that, it'll really go wacko on you.
Yes, but not a good idea. That's most people who know about these things say don't try it. It's very, very dangerous.
Well, yeah, because you could get a real big rush of negative energy.
Yes, there's no doubt about that.
No, you don't. You're not exactly guaranteed which one's going to step through.
No. I wouldn't advise anybody to do that. Keep well clear of Ouija boards.
Right. Okay. Now, one more time, folks. If y'all want to learn more, go to www.ley-man.co. You can also find his book at Amazon. And today and tomorrow, I'm going to be posting this show to my archive. And y'all can find it there with a full description, its picture, the link to where you can buy it, the whole 9 yards. And please, if you like the show and you want to buy his book, you're interested, don't go straight to Amazon. Click on the link, because I do get a commission for it, and it does help keep me on the air. Did you have any last-minute thoughts real quick before we call it quits for the day?
Yes, layman is spelled ley-man.co.uk.
Yeah, I did not specify the L-E-Y,
yes,
and I should have.
Some people spell it L-A-Y and can't find it. L-E-Y. Lima, Echo, Yankee.
Okay, well, thank you. I do appreciate that. And with that, I guess we're going to call this one here a wrap. It's been a real pleasure to have you, David, and I certainly wish you the best in your endeavors, and I'd like to stay in touch with you if at all possible.
Yes, certainly, by all means.
Okay. Well, folks, thank you guys for attending. Couldn't have a show without my listeners any more than I could have one without a guest. And don't forget to come back and see me. Well, let's see. This Tuesday, I'm having a show on Tuesday, which is not normal for me, but this lady could only be here for Tuesday. We're going to be talking about Citizen Coke. She and another director, this is about a DVD, a documentary, have been investigating the Koch brothers and their connection to the teabaggers and how they've been funding the teabaggers, and they've been targeting the unions in order to get rid of the Democrats, because that way there'd be nobody to oppose them, more or less, and they can make their own laws without Democrats fighting them, because they'd be gone. So you want to hear a little bit more about this? That's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I hope to see you guys then. In the meantime, y'all have a good weekend. Bye-bye, everybody. And